Good evening, Facebook. Good evening. Aha, here we are. Yes. Mum, you're on first. I think you might have even just beaten Sylvia. Yes, you have. The Mum and Sylvia race. I think Mum beat Sylvia there just by about 2 seconds. Oh, welcome everybody. Hi Sylvia. Hi Mum. Hi Brenda. Hi Carol. Who else is there? Oh, quite a few people. That's great. Well, good evening. Oh, Sylvia, I saw that sad emoticon just flying up the screen then. Don't be sad. You always win normally. Good evening and welcome to Izzy's Crafty Bees. I'm Izzy Szynski and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in the UK, and I'm based in North Nottinghamshire. And this evening I'm going to share with you how I made a mixed media project, a fairly simple one for those mixed media experts, but if you're new to mixed media and making canvases, this could actually be used on the cover of a journal, notebook, one of those hardback notebooks. You could do a plaque. Anyway, the techniques are really useful for a variety of projects, so hopefully I'm going to share with you some techniques this evening. But as always, I'll start my live by saying 3 things that have made me happy this week. And I've actually just got back from Norfolk. We went to Norfolk on Thursday evening, straight after I'd finished work. I had Friday off as annual leave, and we went down to our caravan in Norfolk for a long weekend, and we got back yesterday tea time. So I've had a day at home, and I had planned to share this project with you because I'd already made the project and I'd had a lot of love for it on social media, so I knew it was something that I could pretty much hit the ground running with, even if I hadn't have returned until today. So that's one thing that's made me happy, is having a long weekend away. The other thing that's made, well, a couple of things that have made me happy actually since getting home and looking around the garden. I have now got some ripening tomatoes. They're coming thick and fast, so that's brilliant, and that always makes me happy when I know I've grown something from seed that I can eat. It makes me really happy. And the other thing that's growing in my garden that's just flowered are some beautiful white lilies in a planter at the front door that were actually gifted to me by my next door neighbour Steve. Now Steve is a fab gardener and he grows lots and lots of flowers. Dahlias are his thing, and I often admire his dahlias and the beautiful colour that he has in his garden, and from time to time he chucks stuff in a bucket and gives me it, and I'm a bit naughty because sometimes I don't get it in the ground at the right time, or something just happens and I might not make use of the freebies. Anyway, actually that's maybe 4 things, because 2 things have just flowered that Steve gave me as freebies: a fabulous massive dahlia that's in a planter in the back garden, and these beautiful white lilies that I popped in a planter at the front door. So if you do visit, if you're local, you'll see my big lilies in the planter at the front door. So that's what's made me happy this week. What's made you guys happy? I shouldn't say guys, you lovely ladies happy, because I think we're all ladies watching this evening. So what's made you happy this week? Please pop your comments below. Oh, Sue, you got my birthday card. I'm sorry it was late. It was almost going to be too early because I got my dates mixed up, and then it was late. What am I like, honestly? Right, let's get organised. Let me just pop my notebook to one side and let me get ready to spin the camera round. So bear with me and we will just... Oh gosh, Facebook have changed all the things. Hi Lorna. Oh, I've got fingers everywhere. They've changed all the buttons, and now I nearly pressed finish instead of camera turn. That would have been a disaster. So let me just swivel my camera and try and get you level and a bit nearer the front. So let's have a look. That's great. So this is the project we're going to make this evening. You may have seen it posted on my Facebook site and my Instagram feed, etc. It's actually really quite a simple project. It's using one of those canvas boards. So here's a blank one. They're thin. They come in a pack of 3 usually from places like The Works or other craft hobby shops, etc. And it's just a mixed media. So what that means is we're going to use lots of different media. So paper, we're going to use some embossing paste, we're going to use an embossing technique, heat embossing technique, and we're going to use ink and alcohol and embellishments and die cuts and layers. And if you are already a mixed media expert, then this session may be a bit simple for you, but I wanted to actually demonstrate how we can use all Stampin' Up products to do a mixed media project. I'm just reading comments while I'm standing. Sue, you're happy because Mr. Brown is bringing your penguins tomorrow. Well, I hope he delivers, because Mr. Brown's been promising to visit me today and he hasn't rocked up. He's still somewhere like Castle Donington or something ridiculous. But I did take delivery yesterday rather, of a box which included your freebie, Sue, from last month's order, because you used the host code. And when the parcel arrives, hopefully tomorrow, it will have your freebie for this month's order, which is your penguins. So what am I talking about? Why is Sue getting freebies? If you shop online with me, like Sue has done, because you're not local to me, and if you use the current host code, at the moment it is 4VAEFJX. And when I read that for the first time, it just reminded me of the Two Ronnies. Was it a Two Ronnies sketch? It was Two Ronnies, wasn't it? FVNEMNX. Anyway, if you're old enough to remember that, that just made me laugh. So if you use this host code when you shop online and you spend over £25, then I will send you a free gift the following month. And I do apologise to Sue that she's had to wait for last month's freebie. It's just that it got stuck and held up with customs and I had a little bit of a wait, but it's been released and it's here now, so I'll post them both together. So what are we using to make this project? Well, we're going to use a suite of products called the Harvest Meadow suite. So I'm using everything from the Harvest Meadow suite that I possibly can. I'm using the stamp set and the dies, and they come as a bundle. I'm also going to use the embossing folder, which is the Time Worn Type 3D embossing folder. I'm going to use a bit of the ribbon, some of the cork, a couple of these embellishments. I'm going to use some of the DSP, and I'm also going to sneak in a stamp from Quiet Meadow, which is in the annual catalogue stamp set, because I do think that these two stamp sets just go really beautifully together. So you could actually make this entire project using this stamp set and this as your focal image. If you've already got this and the dies that go with this, you could use that. I'm going to add some additional products. So what else am I going to use? I'm going to use some masks, some embossing paste, and I'll be using a spatula, maybe one of those spatulas with my embossing paste. I'm going to use, I've got a spritzer bottle with some just water in, so that's a spray bottle, and I've also got a big spritzer bottle that just has alcohol in. I'll talk to you about that in a moment. I'm going to add one of the cute bee trinkets from, I've forgotten which suite, I think is it the Quiet Meadow? I've forgotten which suite it is from the annual catalogue. These cute bee trinkets, can't not have a bee when there is one. And I'm going to use a die from the TaylorMade tag. So I've got quite a lot of products, however, and some ink, of course. However, what I want to say is I actually have made a really elaborate mixed media canvas previously under the tuition of someone else, actually my stepsister, who's really talented with mixed media, and I was astonished just how many products you actually needed to do that level of mixed media, and lots of different alcohol inks of different colours and different textures and shimmers and all kinds of stuff. And that canvas took me, I think, half a day. So I'm going to show you how we can start to use all Stampin' Up products to make this one. So let's get cracking. I'm going to use, like I say, this is I think it's about an A5, and it's one of the thin boards, so you could even use this to send in the post. It goes reasonably flat, it's not too three-dimensional. So I'm going to use one of those boards, and I'm going to actually take a seat now. So I will stand up in a little while and check comments, but for the moment I'm going to sit down. I'm going to start the project. I've got a real huge box full of products here, so I'm going to just keep those to one side. I'm going to use embossing powders. I'm going to use gold flake as well, the gold, I forgot what it's called. Anyway, I'll tell you as we get onto it. But I'm going to start with the actual board, and the first thing I'm going to do is put the texture on. Let me just get that rattling out of the way and pop that to one side. So I'm going to use this set of masks, that's the word I'm looking for. So they come in as a pack of 4, and actually there are some rudimentary instructions. If you've not used masks before, you can use them to spritz using ink, chalk or glimmer spray, sponge, trace, emboss, add texture. So they've Stampin' Up, we've told you what you can do with them. But I'm just going to go through the mask. This is the one I'm going to use, and this has 4 different mandala images. So I'm going to use this one. Then there is one in there that has a repeat pattern that looks a bit like a lotus flower. There's another repeat pattern that looks like scales, and then there's a repeat pattern that looks like geometric, kind of shattered geometric. So a very mixed pack of masks. I think that's fantastic because there's something there for every mood really. There's lots of variety. I'm just going to pop those to one side, but I'm going to use the mandala mask to start with, and I'm going to use that on this project. So the one I used on my original project was this one. So I'm going to try and replicate this as near as I can, just so that you can see exactly what I did. And I'm going to use some embossing paste. So this is our embossing paste. As you see, it comes in a grip seal bag. It comes in a plastic tub that you get a lot. You get 118 millilitres or 4 fluid ounces worth. You get a lot, and it does last a long time. Now I am just going to reach for a grid sheet, and I think I will use a grid sheet for quite a bit of this project because it does get messy. So let's just pop that down just for ease of cleaning. And I'm going to open up, and you'll see that it has a foil lid which I've peeled back and then I've squished down. Now I noticed with my embossing paste, when it arrived, it was a little bit crumbly, and I wasn't sure if it was okay, but I actually used it very successfully on this project without a problem. Once I started using it, I realised that it did work perfectly well. I'm actually just going to hold my mask down. I'm not going to attach it with any washi tape or masking tape, and I'm just going to take out, can you see how crumbly that is? I think actually it should be a little bit wetter than that, but it still performs fine. So I'm going to take the broad spatula, and by pressing it down quite firmly, you can see how it starts to go on a bit like polyfiller, and that's what you want to be aiming for. And I'm taking care not to go onto this mandala here. I'm just squishing it through the holes of the mask in one corner. I'm just squishing it through and then scraping it flat with that broad side of that spatula. And I'm reckoning that that won't be coming out too well on camera, but it will as soon as I reveal and peel off that mask. You should be able to see how pretty that looks, and because it's quite a nice thin layer, I'm just going to scrape off around the edges because it's quite a nice thin layer. It shouldn't take too long to dry. I wanted to start with this because of course that embossing paste does need to actually dry. I'm going to do the same mandala over this side, so I'm trying to replicate this one as near as possible. I'm going to do exactly the same, just scoop a bit of that paste out of the tub. I'm just holding it down and I'm really squishing it, so I'm putting a bit of pressure on, and that pressure is making that go smooth, so that crumbly texture is actually going on smooth. I'm just pressing that through the mask. It's a bit like the consistency of icing, royal icing. If you've ever iced a cake, I don't know whether I've actually ever iced a royal icing cake, but I seem to feel like it's that consistency. Fondant, maybe. Yeah, is royal icing the stuff that you actually roll out? Maybe it's fondant icing. It's not as wet as buttercream. Oh, I feel like I want a piece of cake now. I've just been talking to Mum about cake. Mum's hosting a tea party, afternoon tea, on Thursday for cancer care, breast cancer care. If you'd like to donate to her, you can probably find the link on my Facebook page, a Just Giving page. Okay, so I feel like I fancy a bit of cake now. We were talking about Battenberg. Now, what I need to tell you is when you've finished using your embossing paste, you must, and I try and just get it to go down into the tub, you must pop the foil on the top, and then I use the end of the spatula to press that down. And if we've got spare that you scraped off around the edge, if you can get that off, it'll save it from drying and then falling in dried lumps into the wet stuff. Then pop the lid back on. Get a piece of kitchen towel. I'm just going to wipe the excess off my spatula. And the next thing that's really important, and I've got, because I don't have a sink in my craft room, I've brought in a box with just plain water in, and I'm going to drop the spatula and the mask just into that water so that it can be soaking. If I wasn't doing a live, I'd be running into the kitchen now and just scrubbing that under the tap. Just plain water. And I'm just going to get a piece of kitchen towel and just pick up those little bits there that are on my desk, just to save them getting trodden onto the floor. And then the whole tub goes back in its grip seal bag. Again, it just keeps it even more airtight, and that can go back in the drawer. And that's the embossing powder dimension onto the canvas. I'm going to pop that to one side to let it dry as much as possible while I do some of these other pieces. So I can now work on some of these embellishment pieces. So I'm going to start, the only piece of stamping that I do have to die cut is this focal image here, which is the 3 echinacea sort of daisies, which I'm going to, so I've got some white cardstock here, just ordinary white. I could actually, let's have a look, I've got some, actually I'm going to use basic white thick instead because it'll give me a bit more texture. Let me just pop that to one side, excuse me. So I just use some basic white thick to stamp my echinacea daisies. Now, a couple of weeks back, Sue, who's watching, asked about getting, it's all right getting the stamps onto the blocks. I think I said to mount your stamps on the block, pop your stamp down and then just stick it to the block. And Sue asked about getting them off. Now, I don't know whether you meant getting them off the block when they're a large stamp like this. Now, I find that if I roll it with my finger, rather than trying to get my fingernail underneath, if I roll it like that, it lifts up. Or the other trick is to get one of those post-it stickers that are a bit long, or even a piece of scrap ribbon or a piece of scrap card, and just pop it underneath the stamp, because when it's a large surface area it won't interfere, and then you can just, you've got something to pull it off if you've got no fingernails or that rolling technique doesn't work. Now, I think that's what you meant, so please let me know if it was something else, if you're asking a different question. Now I'm going to stamp this. I think I actually stamped it in basic grey. I might have stamped it in, let me have a look, grey granite. I'm not sure. Not quite sure. I think I may have stamped it in grey granite. Let's go with grey. It's a bit softer. I don't want anything too harsh, so I want to use a softer. I don't want black, that's for sure. So tap, 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 and I'm going to just stamp that I'm pretty sure that that's the colour I used. I'm just going to make sure that that's dried nicely, because we're going to add a bit of colour with some ink. So I'll just pop that stamp to one side. This project, you do use a lot of workspace, so if you can get yourself well organised and have some extra surface space. So I'm going to use a pale, let me see, I use soft succulent. The three colours I'm going to use for the background are Bumblebee, Cinnamon Cider and Soft Succulent. Now the colour in the DSP is not Cinnamon Cider, it's actually Cajun Craze, and I couldn't remember whether I used Cajun Craze or Cinnamon Cider, and I preferred Cinnamon Cider when I looked earlier. So I'm going to just steal some of that water from underneath my desk in that box, because I haven't got any in my water pot, so I just need a little bit of water for some watercolouring. I'm going to use an aqua brush, and all I'm doing is adding a tiny bit of colour to the stems, and I don't want it to be too wet because I'll smudge that ink, so I'm going to water it down, but I'm going to make sure that it's not too wet by just dabbing it off. I'm going to try and work quickly. Now it is about 3 or 4 weeks since I made this, so some of this is just actually from memory, and I'm working ever so quickly. I'm not dilly-dallying, and I'm not using a lot of brush strokes on this for fear of actually smudging the grey granite ink that I've stamped. So nice and light. You don't have to be an artist. Stampin' Up have done the hard work for you and produced this wonderful image. And all you're doing is adding a bit of colour. It is the focal point for the project. So if you wanted to, you could think about a little bit of shading underneath those flower heads. Make that a little bit darker. But really you don't have to go to town. I could make perhaps this leaf a bit darker underneath. And that's about as technical as I'm going to get, because the yellow for the daisy heads, I'll just dry that ink pad. I'll leave what I've squished in the lid, but where I've added water I'm just going to dry that so I don't water it down. I'm just wheeling around here, bear with me, I'm just going to find forgot to get a dauber out. So the colour for the actual daisy heads is just simply going to be daubed on, so I'm just going to daub that using a dauber. And I'm not going to put any on there because I'm going to die cut it, so I'm angling my dauber a little bit, not going straight down, but I'm just dotting that on. So simple. I'm sure you'll agree anyone can do that. So now I'm going to free that from that large piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to get out my dies. So I've got my Harvest dies. Now in this set we get a lot of dies. We've got an outline die for this flower, and I'm also going to get out these wheat, sort of looks like wheat dies. You get quite a lot of dies in the set. Oh, I also need this one, this twiggy one, if you can see this twig behind. I'm not sure if that's actually showing up on camera, but I'm just going to check. So I'll just get my dies out that I need. Which surface shall I pop them on? Actually using nearly all of my room here. Now I want to see if I can cut. As you can see, I don't need all of the length of the piece of wheat, so I know I can cut that as well as this as I run that through the die cutting machine. So I'm going to bring in, I'm actually going to go to my die cutting machine bench because I haven't got very much room here, and I was actually pointing to this twiggy piece here. I'm going to cut some of that lovely gold shimmery vellum. I'm going to cut a piece of that in a bit. Oh, I'm just looking at comments. So that was the tip for you, Sue. That's what you wanted to know. That's brill. I'm glad about that. So just stay there. Don't go away. I'm going to take all of this over here and just cut that on my big machine. So I'm going to take all of this. I'm going to line that up. Now, where's my washi tape? I usually have a piece of old washi. Oh, there we go. So a bit of old washi tape. And if I'm going to make it even lower tack, I'm just going to stick it onto my shorts. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm doing this on my shorts. And that just makes it even lower tack, but it just helps to keep that in position. And I'm sticking it to the outside edge. It'll just stop it from skipping. And I'm just going to position that there. I'll pop my top plate on and take all of that to the machine. And I'll be right back. Here we go. There we are. So I've got my piece of wheat, and this is basic white thick. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to colour that in a second. And I've got my pretty flower. And I'll just pop that piece of washi on my machine. So we've got our flower, and we can use that as our focal point. And I just pop my other dies away. Now, while I'm die cutting, I'm going to use, I've got all my pieces of paper here. I'll just pop those to one side. I'm going to use this die, and I'm going to use a piece of this gold shimmer vellum. This is in the, I think this is in the Sweet. It's in the spring, yes. No, the autumn winter catalogue. I don't know what season we're in. I'm just going to chop a lump of that off and drop it on the floor. Bear with me. You can tell I'm balancing stuff on top of things. I'm dropping things all over the place. Here we go. So I'm going to go back to the die cutter. Can you see this gold? Now, somebody was asking me about this, and I can't remember who it was. Is the gold shimmer vellum lovely? And yes, it is. So I'm actually going to cut a couple of these, I think, just so we've got enough elements when we start building the piece and assembling it all together. So let's just run that through once. Flex it and see if it'll just pop out on its own. Yes. So there's one, and I'm just going to cut another one. And all of this is about texture and layers. This project is all about texture and layers and adding and embellishing. And that's why it's called mixed media, because we're just mixing up the different media that we're using. We're not just simply using paper, ink and stamps. Great. So now we've got some more elements that we know we can use. Before I start to talk about these layers, we'll just go ahead and I'm going to show you how I coloured this piece. Now, there are lots of different ways you might be able to colour the piece. Oh, myself another piece of kitchen towel. I'm going to fold it into a pad so it's quite absorbent. There are lots of ways you could colour this and make it, just hold it up to the camera. Can you see that it's quite sort of patchy and blotchy? So I want that texture, that kind of feeling of texture with those different blotchy colours. So you could use a dauber and you could daub some colour on, which would work perfectly well. So that's one way of putting some colour onto that piece and it looking textured. I'm going to use a blending brush, and I'm going to tap, tap, tap. I'm not worrying too much about the stems, I'm focusing on the top, and I'm just tapping the colour. I'm not blending, I'm just tapping it on, blobbing it on. And I'm going to take my alcohol So this is isopropyl alcohol. I buy it in big bottles like this, 1 litre bottle. So it's isopropyl alcohol, 99.8 minimum, or rubbing alcohol. I use it quite a lot in crafts. It's also brilliant for cleaning your equipment like your snips, your trimmer, anything that you get glue on, basically. Now I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to give it a blast of air. Because it's alcohol, it evaporates and dries really rapidly. And what I can also do is give it a spritz of water. And I can give it another blast of air. And we'll just have a look at that texture. And it's a little bit mottled, but it's not overly. I love it, Mum. Some call it mixed media and some call it arty-farty. I think that's what my friend Helen might call it. So I'm going to add more ink. It's definitely arty-farty. And again, I'm just tapping sort of in one area. I'm just smooching it on, giving it a good tap. And I'll have a look at that. It's quite a bit of messing around. It is arty-farty. You can see I've got more concentration. I'm going to give it another good spritz with that alcohol. And then that drying it off. It kind of just makes it concentrate in one area. Makes it look a bit more battered and weathered. And you could layer up the colours. You could add some brown in there. So I could actually add some of that cinnamon side. I'm going to stick with just yellow for those ears of corn. I could pop some green on the stems if I wanted, but I'm going to stick with that yellow, that bumblebee colour. So there we are. We've got another element now to add. So we've got some elements building up over here. I'm just going to pop my kitchen paper to one side. And all the while our canvas is over here drying. I'll let that carry on drying. Now the next piece, element that I want to make is this piece of torn cardstock that I've embossed using the embossing folder. So I'm going to bring in that piece of, that's white thick I think. Let's have a look. We'll go with ordinary basic white, not white thick for this piece. And I'm just going to bring my trimmer and roughly, let's just have a quick measure. What did my piece? This was actually a piece that I made and for a card, and then in the end didn't use it, and I thought it looked good. So that's about 11 by about 8, something like that. So I'll go 11. Oops. Roughly by 8, because I'm going to tear that anyway. And I'm going to use this gorgeous new embossing folder, and it's that time worn type. Now it's got old fashioned, it's quite grungy and distressed looking. It's got these distressed areas, and then it's got these little pieces of typewriter type, old fashioned. And I want you, if you use this, to take note that some of the words, they do have a direction. So I can see the word never and the word harvest over here, and actually it's handy to remember that your hinge is the top, and I've made myself a note of which plates to use, plate 1 and plate 4, because it's a 3D embossing folder. So I can pop that in, and I'm going to use plate 1 and then plate number 4, which is the thicker embossing. So there's no bottom plate, there's just your platform. So it's platform number 1, plate number 4, and always hinge first into your machine. There we go. And here we go. Got that lovely lovely embossed, put that in my box and try and keep a little bit tidy. Got that lovely embossed look with that sort of grungy. Now I'm going to, as you can see, I've coloured mine, and I'm going to again use my blending brushes. So here we go. I'm going to use Soft Succulent. Oh, I've got a frog in my throat tonight. And I'm just going to use my blending brush, and I'm going to start around the edges. And I'm going to use a light touch so that it just kind of picks up that type. Just brush that over and it starts to pick up the typewriter words. And of course we're covering quite a bit of it, so we don't need to go too mad. And as always I say, start off the piece and work your way in. To be honest, with this you could sort of splodge it down and it wouldn't, because it's a nice grungy, distressed piece, so it wouldn't be too disastrous. I just love how that, you see how that typewriter, because I'm going to cover the middle anyway, but can you see how that embossing just reveals itself? Just a nice light touch, rubbing that over with the blending brushes, and it just brings it to life. I'm going to go quite dark down one side, or around the edges. I'm going to add quite a bit of ink. Just keep adding it until you're happy. And I'm going to tear down one edge just to give it again that distressed look. Sort of wiggle about. There we go. And now I'm going to add that ink. And again, you could choose to use 2 different colour inks if you were replicating this or having a go. I do want to encourage you to just have a play. If you've never done any mixed media before, this is a nice gentle introduction. You don't need masses of different distress inks or alcohol blends or anything like, you know, if you watch other crafters online, you'll see just how much stuff they've actually got, whereas we can use all Stampin' Up stuff now. I'm just bashing this corner and wrinkling it and rolling it round and trying to just make it all look a bit sort of distressed. So just rolling it between my finger and thumb and let it curl over and give that some ink as well. Again, that gives it some texture and some height. That's looking quite good now. You can even, if you're really brave, give it a good old wrinkle. Who's shouting now? Who's shouting? No, don't crease it. But you can give it that really old look, old paper look, by wrinkling it and then laying it out flat, and it just gives it a different look anyway. Just have a drink of water. I'm not dry, I've just got a frog in my throat. Oh. Okay, so that's another element that we're ready. Now this is the fun piece. This cork paper is lovely. It's so nice. I'm just going to get that out and show you. Just get rid of that bit there. So it's a 12 by 12 pack, and you get 2 sheets in the pack, and 2 sheets doesn't sound a lot, but it does go a long way, because it's not something that you're going to use as a massive layer. You're going to use it like for elements and die cuts and bits and pieces. Now let me just stand that out of the way with that glittery gold. So this actually has a paper backing, so it's very much like brown paper, wrapping paper. It's thin and it's flexible, and it is real cork that's been glued and adhered to this brown paper backing. It's really forgiving, and I'm actually going to do something a bit different to this, in that I'm going to die cut a tag. So I'm going to use these tailor-made tag dies, and I'm going to use the biggest one. Shall we go fancy? As we've got some curves in the mandala, let's go fancy with the round top. And I'll just pop the rest of them over here out of the way, and I'm going to just roughly cut the amount that I'm going to need. So I'm just going to chop it and free it from, yes, I know, did you see me just chop into that piece of speciality paper then? I just chopped it. That's what it's for. You have to use it. You can't just stroke the cork paper and love it. You've got to use it. And these dies are fab. They give you that stitched edge. So I just thought that might give it a bit of added interest. So I'm going to run that quickly through the machine. Oh, I'll have to make my sandwich up. So I'm going to use the base platform, layer number 2 because I'm die cutting layer, elements, and then top layer, and I'm going to run that through the machine. I sometimes wish I had one of those fancy studios with camera 1 and camera 2 and a cameraman and a sound man and a fancy microphone and all of that jazz, but hey, let's remember I do this as a hobby. So here we are, camera number 1. There's a beautiful cork tag. How nice does that look? And I might just save this piece. Then again, I might just bin it. But you could use these little bits here. See if I just snip that. You could use a little piece of that cork as an element on a card, perhaps, if you're a really frugal crafter. But to be honest, I'm just going to pop that over there in the bin. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I added the gold bits. And if you look closely, I've actually stamped Nature's Beauty just subtly on the background. So first off, let's add some gold. And I added that using the gold gilded leafing flakes. I never get the name of these right. The gilded leafing flakes. Oh, I think that's right. So I need some an image first of all, and in the stamp set we've got this splodge, so I'm going to use that splodge and I'm going to stamp it on using Versamark and then heat and stick powder, so I've got something to stick the gilded leafing onto. So tap tap tap, and I'm going to give it, let me just get my top, I'm going to actually move my canvas out of the way a little bit to dry because I'm running out of space. Here we go, I'm going to get my heat and stick powder good to go because I've been messy when I put this away last time. That's the beauty of these boxes. So I'm just going to actually tip that back into the tub that it belongs in. Get myself all ready because once you've stamped, you want to tip your powder straight on and then heat it, so that it then becomes like a glue. So I'm just going to randomly stamp a bit there. You won't be able to see any of this until I've actually added, but it looks so nice and effective, the cork with the gold on the background. So now can you see where I've added the heat and stick powder to that image? So if I just leave that and don't touch it for a minute, I can then get my Versamark away. I can get my heat and stick powder lid back on so I don't chuck it on the floor, and pop that to one side. And now I'm going to go back to my old favourite clothes peg, hold that steady, and I'm going to heat it with my heat gun, and that will turn this heat and stick powder into glue. And you don't want to overheat it, you just want to heat it enough. So now that's sticky, I can very carefully open the box of gold. Don't breathe. Please don't sneeze, anybody. Please just hold your breath while I do this, because this is the stuff that flies everywhere. But I love it. I absolutely love it. Look, oh, so soft and lovely and lush. And I'm going to just press it in chunks onto that sticky glue. I can take my clothes peg off now. Let's get rid of that. I love it. I love messing with this. It's just fab. See, this project, this mixed media project, really appeals to me. It appeals to my Creativity, my messy side. I love messing. You know, I'm a tidy person, but I do love messing with different types of things. So this gets everywhere. I look like a disco queen when I finished. I'm going to get my stiff bristle brush and just give it a brush. It adds a different, you could do this with gold embossing powder, but this adds, this gilded leafing adds a different luster. Gold embossing we are going to use on the background of the canvas, and you will see it, you'll see the difference. And just press it on and it will stick to where the heat and stick powder has turned to glue, and that's lovely. I'm happy with that. I'll just drop that brush in there and we'll very carefully, I've given up even trying to just get it all back in the tub inside the box. We just have to hope that it, as much as we can, goes back in the box. Oh, and then the lid goes on nice and secure. I think that's on. Pop that back on the shelf where it belongs so I don't knock it off. And we've got little bits, and I'll be, oh, it's flying everywhere. But how lovely is that? I'm just going to stand. Oh, look, it's a different luster of gold to heat embossing. I'm going to just bring my original canvas and point out that these speckles, if that's focusing, these speckles are gold embossing powder, gold embossing, and they're nowhere near as lustrous as this gilded leafing. So now we're going to add another element of interest, and I've taken from Nature's Harvest this sentiment: sending healing thoughts, may nature's beauty bring peace to your soul. And all I want are the words nature's beauty. So I'm going to use, if I can find it, where's it gone? Oh, it's here. I'm going to use my Stampin' Up marker in Early Espresso, which is the darkest brown we have in ink, and I'm actually just going to ink up the words nature's beauty. So always remember to look through your sentiments and make sure you use them. Huff, and then I'm going to stamp, and some of the word will be missing, some of the word will stay on. I don't want it to look uniform. Huff and stamp. Puff again and see whether we can get another. Yes, we've got that just pale. Build that up. You see how effective that is, just using a part of the sentiment. Just keep stamping so we get some words. It's nice, we've got the type, letters and words for this background piece, and we've got that typewriter sort of effect, or typewriter font in the sentiment. So I just wanted to echo that and pick it up. So now we've got another element that we can layer up. So now we're starting to look at some layers, and even when we just throw them down, they start to look really pretty. So let's revisit our canvas and see how we're doing in regard to drying. I think I'm going to give it a blast with the heat tool. See if we can just help it along its way. Obviously
if you're making this at home, you'll have more time to let it dry, and that's one of the reasons why I've kind of felt unable to demonstrate this kind of project much in the past, because of the drying time. But because I've put that on quite a thin layer, it's drying nice and quickly. Now the other couple of bits of element that I've got on this originally is a little tiny piece of DSP and a piece of this beautiful diamond weave ribbon. It's a crochet, like a crochet trim. So I'm just going to take a snip of that, not too much, you don't need too much, and I'm going to give that a bit of a pull, let it fray a bit. You can also add colour to this because it's cotton, so you could actually add some colour with some ink. I'm going to leave it natural, but I'm going to fray some of those edges just to make it look again a bit sort of distressed looking. So I've got another element there. Now, piece of DSP. Oops. Underneath all my other boxes I've got the pack of DSP that comes with the suite, and I think I've been through this before. The one that I really loved was the colourful one. So you can see how we've got some really gorgeous pieces. This colourful one, it's this piece here, and on the back is a fairly neutral piece. And I'm just going to take a really small snip. I'm not going to take too much of it. I'm just going to take a little snip of it, just like that. I'm not even bothered about it being straight. As you can see, I actually tore the piece that I used underneath. Let's just give that a tear. If you tear it that way, you'll get the white edge underneath. If you tear it that way, you'll get the white edge on top. So I want sort of like the white edge underneath. I don't really want it showing, but I do want to sort of distress it. I don't want it to look too square. It's just a snip of colour. It's just a splash of colour to give it a pop with the other elements that we're building up. So I've got building up my pile of bits and pieces. Now I want to start to add some colour to this, but before I add some colour, I actually want to do some of this heat embossing. If you can see this, there's a piece of typed text, and I've heat embossed that in white, and then when I add the colour to it, it should do an emboss resist technique, so the white should come through. So I just cheated ever so slightly, and I've used this stamp from Quiet Meadow, and I've also used this splatter stamp from Quiet Meadow, so I'm doing a bit of a mix and match. I'm going to use this last and heat emboss in gold, but first I'm going to use, let me just grab a block. Oops. I'm going to use this text type, so it looks like a bit of distressed typewriter text again, and I'm going to heat emboss in a couple of places, a bit up here and a bit down here, in white embossing powder. So let me just prepare myself. That's gold embossing, that's white embossing powder. Let me once again just prepare myself, and find an inch of space somewhere on my desk. Yeah, I've got plenty of white in there. My Versamark, disgusting, dirty Versamark, but it still works. And I'm actually going to double this up, so I'm going to carefully stamp once and carefully stamp, just offset it a bit twice. And let's go for that and see what that's like. That's great. I was looking to see if I had any overspill, because I didn't really want to get any overspill. Just put that back on my Versamark and heat. I'm now questioning whether I actually did this last after I'd added the colour or whether I did it first like heat and emboss resist. But as I've started, I'm going to finish. And you know what? If it doesn't work, we'll go back in and make it work. So I'm just going to add one there. Pretty sure I did it first. But as I was doing this project, not really with the intention of demonstrating, didn't take any notes. Usually if I'm doing a project that I know I will demonstrate, I'll always make notes as I go along. As always, you'll see that I move my heat tool, keep it moving. You don't want to hold it too long in one position just for fear of scorching something. You don't want scorch marks. Now I'm pretty confident that this embossing paste is dry enough now to go and start adding some colour to the background. So this is when the fun really starts. I'm going to use my blending brushes. And as I've got 3 colours, I'm going to use 3 colours. I'm going to use this one for yellow and for cinnamon cider. So I will start with yellow and then work the cinnamon cider second. But I will start with green to begin with. And again, I'm going to try my best to replicate the original. So I'm just going to try and pop that there. Let me just stand and see what's on camera. So if I leave that there, you should be able to see me working on this one here. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to start with my green, which is soft succulent ink, and I'm just going to use the blending brush, and I'm going to just start adding the ink. Now you'll be able to see that mandala shape, and I'm actually going to take care and add some colour around the edges as well. You could use a sponge for this. I feel that the blending brushes give you a softer application of the ink. I'm going to add plenty. I'm going to add that up this top corner as well. And I'll go now you'll see that pattern emerge, and we can tell it's dry because it's not smudging everywhere. And I'm going to go in with some yellow now. I'm going to lay all my colours down, and then I'm going to get that lovely alcohol background. Let's add some yellow in. So the effect we want is like the alcohol inks. When you use alcohol inks, they kind of tend to run and puddle and pool, and they can look like really nicely blended together, almost like, I mean, at the moment with the blending brushes, you can see they almost look like aerosol, like an aerosol effect. I'm going to try and blend away that blob that I've just created, although when we start to add alcohol it should run away. I love this yellow, this bumblebee, such a lovely cheerful yellow. And now we can see that emboss resist, the letters that we've got there. I think we'll add some of that warm cinnamon cider colour. Let's add a bit more intense yellow here. And again, I'm not worried too much about the middle, because if we can't see it, it's not there. I'm really concentrating on the edges. So what I will do, as I'm going to use the same brush for cinnamon cider as I've used for yellow, the bumblebee, is I will just grab a microfiber cloth, and I'm going to just take off as much yellow as I can, so I'm not going to contaminate my cinnamon cider pad. You can wash these brushes in plain water. You can add a bit of detergent if you want, but they do wash and dry, but you do need a bit of drying time, so don't go washing them. Now I can see straight away that it mustn't have been cinnamon cider that I used. It must have been Cajun Craze, because that's not as pink as this, but we'll carry on with cinnamon cider. It's still a lovely autumny colour, which is what I'm aiming for. Now it really shows up. It looks lovely, that lettering. Let's go for it. I'll add a bit more down here. And I'm going to go for it on this corner. I hope this isn't too boring to watch me just blending away here happily in my craft room. I'm having fun anyway. Like I said, I'm not too fussed about this bit because we're going to pretty much have all of these elements in the middle, so we'll cover that middle bit up. So now we can start and just pop some alcohol on, and what I'm going to do is a mixture of alcohol and water and blasting it with the heat tool. And what I'm aiming to do is get some puddles and push those puddles around until they dry with this kind of runny, I don't even know what you'd call it, this runny, watery, watermark look. That's what I'm going to call it anyway. So this is the fun bit. Never works the same twice. Oh, the one thing I will do is get myself a big pad of kitchen towel. So I'm going with this kitchen towel at the moment that has these really lovely big sheets, because it's fab for messy projects like this. And making sure all my ink pads are, making sure my original project is out of the way, all my ink pads are closed. I'm just going to move my blending brushes out of the way. I don't want alcohol or water on anything other than this canvas. So plain alcohol, get it really wet, and water. And I can tell you that clears your sinuses. And you can see how it's puddling now. So I'm going to get the heat tool, and can you see how it's run? It gives you that runny effect. I'm going to just keep moving those puddles around. That's a really good one. It's really running away. Kind of leaves a watermark stain. And you don't just do this once, you do it a couple of times until you build up the image that you like. And I'm hoping you can hear my voice over the sound of the dryer. So that's go number one. You can see how I've started to get, I'm just going to have another go here. Sorry about the shadows that I'm casting. Whew, and it's quite hot work as well. So you can see how I've got these tide marks. I'm just going to gently wipe across that white embossed lettering just to see if I can lift some of the alcohol, the ink colour there, and just bring some of that white through. So what could happen is when you reheat the heat embossing powder is it can reliquify and it can get a bit messy, but I think we've done okay there. You can see the difference with the thickness of the embossing paste here. I put quite a thin layer on here and a bit thicker layer here, so you can build this up. If you do one of these projects, you could do a box canvas and you can really build it up. You can actually have a much thicker layer and leave it to dry for much longer. You can use the embossing paste to use with a mask, or you can use the embossing paste to actually add just splodges and, you know, just pat it down. You can sort of manipulate it with your fingers. You can actually spread it, and then you can add embellishments into it, sort of like use it a bit like a glue if you like, and build up different layers. But for this technique you can definitely use a thicker layer or a thinner layer, and you get that bit of relief. You can see that as I angle it, maybe in the shadows. So I'm quite happy with how that's puddled, and I've got these lines for this project just for the process of demonstrating as well. And I'm pretty pleased that I've only been on air for an hour, and already we've got some of the elements, some of the aspects of this project done that take the time. So the layering of colour and the drying of the embossing paste can take quite a bit of time. Now it's a case of layering our elements, laying them down, just arranging them how you want. And I would say try not to sort of go straight on, try and have a bit of angles maybe, and just see how it works for you. That piece of DSP, for example, might work nicely underneath that tag. It's just that pop of colour I'm looking for in this case. I'm quite pleased with that tag, and what I will do with that tag actually is I'm going to put some of this trim through. I'm going to actually use that. Let me get my fabric scissors. I'm going to put some of that through, but obviously it's too thick to go through that hole, so what I'm going to do is just cut it down. Let's have a play. Not sure how this will work. And let's just see what that looks like. Single layer, and make it nice and frayed. Pull some of those bits. Quite like that. Once that gets stuck down, we could actually stick that down with a glue dot. Just thinking of any other ribbons that I might have that could go. This trim might look nice because that's a weave with gold in, and it could pick up the gold from there as well, so we'll have a look at that. But before we do anything, I've just remembered we need those gold speckles, so we need the splatters, and we need some more heat embossing with gold this time. I just remembered, so we're going to go in and just do that to the background. So let's have a look. We've got our gold embossing powder. Here we go, and we're just going to, because we love a speckle, we love a splatter, and just pop some of those here and there, and just see if we can fit a few up there. Let's see. Let's see what we can get rid of. We might have to go in with our old paintbrush. Oops, looks like some of this background's maybe still a bit damp. So I've got a dry paintbrush that I just keep for brushing off stray embossing powder. Can also give it a good blow. I don't want that sticking to there. actually. A good blow's worked better than the paintbrush. So we've got those speckles where we want them, and I'll just set them with the heat tool. Just close up my lid on my Versamark first. I definitely want the lid on the embossing powder, because believe me, if you start to blow while that's around. Grand. So that's giving us those speckles on the background, just another element, another texture. And let's go back in and start to build this up now. I'm wondering whether I need an extra rip down this side. Is it too neat? Or shall we just stick it down? Let's just stick it down. So I'm going to just stick it down, and I'm actually going to use Tombow. I'm going to use multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm just going to put some down the middle. And as we're sticking to canvas, we can put quite a bit on, and I am just going to stick down the middle. I'm not going to stick these edges too neatly. The other reason for that is because I want to layer up, and I've got these twigs and I want to poke them underneath. I'm going to poke those just underneath and see what they look like there. That's great. I might actually just pinch that, and I'm going to just dot some Tombow down the bottom of that. Place that underneath and give it a good press down. And again, because it's canvas board, it's not paper, it doesn't behave the same as paper, so you do just have to work with it and test it, and maybe wait for the glue to go off a little bit. Wait a little bit longer for the glue to go off. If I can speak, it would be marvellous. There we go. And the same with this tag. I might actually just go with that on the opposite angle, just for interest. And I want to put my wheat pieces behind my tag. Something like that. Something similar anyway. Same but different. And I can see that there isn't enough colour on that piece, so I've got my dauber handy. So we'll just colour that with my dauber. I want that tag to be off the piece, the embossed piece, for interest to the eye. I don't want it layering straight up on each other. So let's stick down. Again, you don't need glue on all of it, just dot it on. And hold it down, and it should stick onto your fingers as well. And did I say that that looked quite nice underneath there? Just that little bit of colour poking out. Or should we go underneath this piece? I think we will. I think we'll go just as we did on the original, if we can see the original. Let's bring that back in. Just that pop of colour underneath there. Just something else that's interesting and textured paper. See how you can just build this up. And I've got another sprig of leaves that I might pop under there. I might just separate them and not have as many. Pop some under that side. Now the eagle-eyed might see that I've got some gold, very fine gold thread there, and I did actually take that. I think it was from this gold trim. Pretty sure that I unravelled a piece of gold, because I missed the really fine, yes, and it comes off like a spring. I really miss the gold thread that we used to have. Gold and silver metallic thread. It was always just that little bit of extra sparkle that you could add to a project, and it was next to nothing, but it really gave, I don't know, a finishing touch. And I like fabrics as well to add, you know, ribbons and fabrics. That's one of the reasons I'm absolutely in love with this cork, because it's just another texture, it's something different. Now I think I might be cheeky. I didn't use any dimensionals on my original, but I think I might just be cheeky and stick this on with a dimensional on each corner, just for added height. So has anybody ordered the cork paper, or is anybody tempted to order the cork paper now they've seen it? It really is fab. Carol, did you order the cork paper? I can't remember. Remember you asking me about it? Yeah, so that just gives it another lift. And let's add our next element. Did I stick that one down? I didn't, did I? Let's stick that one down. Again, we don't need to go mad with sponges or anything sticking these. Let's just add a few blobs of glue. Poke that. Oh, we can't poke it too much. Put that down there. I've got some Tombow there, but not to worry because it just dries clear anyway. So that's smashing. Happy with that. This is the bit I really love, just assembling it and putting it all together. So next we want our main. Oh, I'm lying. Did I put that on with a dimensional? I might have put that element on with a dimensional. So let's go for it. Let's bring those back in. I think we might have got dimensionals under the big flower heads, and then glue on the leaves and stems. And we're very nearly done. I hope I've inspired you to have a go at something a bit different. And this would look fabulous on the front cover of a journal, a notebook. Would look lovely decorated like this. Now let's have a go at trying to add some of these twiddly twiddlies, because they are fab but they are springy. So what I'm going to do is bring in the glue dots, and I'm going to just add a glue dot. Let me see which tool to use. Use pokey tool, I think. I just add a glue dot underneath that flower head there. Oh, can't really see what I'm doing. It wants to stick, but it doesn't want to stick. I'm trying to add it to the embossed piece and not get the flower head stuck on. Get my finger in. It's stuck to the pokey tool too much. Let's see. Let's make it into a glue bogey, not a glue dot. Seriously? Let's start again with a new glue dot. Does this ever happen to anyone else? So let's pick a new glue dot off. I have to say that my glue dots are really super sticky because it's ever so warm in here. I'm just going to lift that up so I can actually see what I'm doing. Oh heavens, I'm going to lose my temper in a minute. There you go. So now I've got a glue dot under there. Hurrah, hurrah! I'm going to loop this over. Now some of you will, I already know the crafters who come to class for whom this will be a step too far in fiddliness, but that's fine. This is not a step for everyone. I know what I need. There we go. she says. I can already imagine my mum shouting at this. I think she's gone. I don't think she's watching. I think she said she had visitors. My mum would go mad trying to do this. She'd hate it. But just those two, I'm not going to do any more, but just those two extra gold threads, you can see we've got echoes of gold, that really shiny gold, and this gold embossed splatter. It just picks it up. Now I probably will finish by adding some more of this gold twizzle. I'll possibly pop some down here, but the last couple of embellishments we need a bee trinket, and I've also got some of these brushed metallic adhesive backed dots. These are fab. They come in 3 different metal colours. I just hate these packets. I really hate these packets. They drive me crackers. This cellophane with this on the back. This, I hate it. Eesh. Anybody else? Anybody else with me? Especially on your DSP and it gets stuck everywhere. Right, I'm just tidying. I'm just popping my lids back on my glues because I've nearly finished. So let's just have a little tidy. And then we'll just pop these trinkets on. Because I like to have a tidy desk when I've finished, and you can see the project in all its glory without all this mess around. So glue dot for the bee trinket, because these are just loose trinkets and they come in a pack all on their own. So for this one, where should we have our bee? Let's have a look. We had it up there before. I think I might do an incoming up here. Incoming bee. Lovely. And these are adhesive backed dots, and they're brushed metal, and they come in a bright yellow gold, a copper colour, and a sort of an antique gold. I'm going to go with the bright one. Let me get my snips for this. I don't know where my take your pick tool's hiding. I'm just going to go with maybe one over here, a smaller one. Let's go down here. And I think that's nice because I've got 3 elements in a bit of a triangle with the bee, so I'm just going to leave it like that. We'll just pop those to one side. I'm just going to pop everything in my box, tidy everything away, clear the decks, and then I'm ready to come and have a chat. You can see the project's all finished. Oh, I don't even think I actually stuck that ribbon down with anything, so let me just go in and it just crossed my mind. That was a bit easier. So all I did with that glue dot was rolled it up and made it into a bogey. Sorry about that. And then just pressed it down. So I know that that's not going to pop off. So let's just clear that away and have a look at those 2 projects. Pretty much the same, but different. Yeah, I definitely must have used Cajun Craze ink on this one because it's much pinker than this one. This one's turned out much deeper and richer with that cinnamon cider ink. So, hope that you've enjoyed that. Yes, Sylvia, it is something a bit different, but do you know, I hope that just in that hour and not quite hour and a half, I've encouraged you to try some different projects, different products. I do have a notebook here that I've done something similar but not used any embossing paste on. So this is just a cheap A5 spiral hardback notebook, and I've just stamped the background and added some elements and just stuck some bits and pieces on. I like to decorate things. I could add some embossing paste onto this now with that mask, with those masks, because once that's on and it's dried, it's not going to flake or fall off. It's there, it's going to stay there. So have a go. I think you could also use this as a card, a greetings card. If you put a sentiment on, you could actually because these are those thin canvas boards, you could actually stick that as a topper onto a big card and make it a really special birthday card. You could even use these mixed media ideas on a birthday card, but a box canvas, it works really well. You know, so these framed wooden box canvases, you can do the same sort of thing. One thing I will say is, because these are hollow underneath, you'll need to put something underneath here. When I've taught these kind of canvases in class, I've used a larger one and I've put a block underneath where you're working, because when you're adding any pressure on, then it's just a bit like a trampoline. So that's something to bear in mind. I've also used a wooden plaque. I did this as a class, a very simple class that I ran a good few months ago, well, probably getting on for 18 months ago. We used a tiny bit of embossing paste, but not too much, and then we used a die cut piece for those, and then we just used some simple punched butterflies. Very simple, nothing too elaborate, stamped background. So there's some ideas for pieces that you can use for mixed media. I've also decorated a trinket box. I'm just looking at it, it's right up on the very top shelf, so I'm not going to drag that down. But please be encouraged to have a go. So I'm going to swing the camera back round and say goodbye. I think if I can... I'm sitting in the darkness here. Let me just pop another lamp on, because we're really in the dark. The nights are drawing in. Okay. Oh, those were the days, Carol, when we crafted in person. We'll come again. Here we go. Thank you. Thanks everyone for sticking with me. And we've just been an hour and a half. So yes, thank you so much for sticking with me, and I'm glad that you've enjoyed that session. I really want to encourage you to have a go. So whenever you do get a chance to have a go at doing something a little bit different, please post your pictures, post them in the Crafty Beehive. It's there for everyone, no matter what you've made. I think I spotted Donna had been making cheesecake the other day, so whatever it is that you create, please post your pictures and share your makes with everyone in the Crafty Beehive. I'd love to see how you get on. And as always, if you have any questions or you get stuck with anything, just drop me a note, drop me a message, and I will hop on and try and help. I'll message you back. Earlier today, Debbie Keating posed a question about embossing folders, and I just happened to have some time spare today, so it was really easy for me to jump on and do a very quick demo, because I knew I could do it quickly. So I'm always here to help out with things like that, or in a message. If I can message you back, then I will do. So thanks once again. Just a reminder that celebration continues. If you haven't got catalogues, please let me know. Please always shop with your local demonstrator. I know that quite a few of my team members are joining me this evening, so that's fab. And if you are a customer and have a local demonstrator, then I'm not here to poach anybody's business. I'm just here to share techniques and tips. So please shop with your local demonstrator. And if you don't have a local demonstrator, you're welcome to shop with me online wherever you are in the UK. Okay, thanks very much again for joining me. Please stay safe and keep crafting whatever you do. Bye for now.